Sorry, I muted him. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Tatiana Show. It is December 13th, and I am here in beautiful New Jersey enjoying the winter wonderland that is the holiday season. But I'm actually escaping from here tomorrow. I'm very excited. Josh, I know that you're in a very cold place, and I just wanted to tell you that I'm going to be in Miami tomorrow. Are you jealous and crying?
I'm totally jealous. It's so annoyingly freezing here. I just keep getting sick. It's horrible.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Nah, but
You're taking this one
Christmas
out of
lights.
me gloating
But
by now I feel guilty.
I got to say though, Germany does awesome Christmases. Like all the fairy lights, the bright, like white, and they stick to white, so it's just all this beautiful, sparkly white lights on all the trees. It's amazing.
Yeah, I like winter in New York as well. It's very pretty, and then the cold, miserable darkness sets in for a long time. But basically, up until New Year's, it's wonderful. After that,
yeah, it's kind of like when the Bitcoin price booms, summer, and then crashes. It's winter for a while.
I don't know.
I just want to bring it back to Bitcoin. You know, it's the obsession.
I guess so. Oh man. Yes, well, I think that we need to broaden the show and not only talk about Bitcoin all day long. I actually have my guitar with me. I was thinking maybe I would do a song, but then I just got lazy and I didn't do it. Today we have two guests coming on, and I'm going to bring them on in just a few minutes. So I want to tell people about them, give them a little teaser, a little experience of what they're going to anticipate in the next hour. We've got Fergus Hodgson, who's a friend of mine from New Zealand, Antigua.
Uh-oh, Tatiana froze. I thought I froze. I thought, oh, I froze. Well, let's see what's going on here. Well, Tatiana froze. That's hopefully we'll get her back in the chat. But she was just mentioning our guest that we've got on, Fergus Hodgson. He is a roving editor of Gold Newsletter and the founder of chief executive of Antigua International, a consultancy firm that connects the Americas. He's also a research fellow with the Tax Revolution Institute, which is a really interesting project in Washington, D.C., and a blogger with the Fraser Institute in Canada. So he's got a lot on his plate. He studied economics at Boston University and political science at the University of Waikato in New Zealand, of course, our friendly Australian neighbors, and Cuban history at the University of Miami. So it's just his bio just goes on and on and on, his resume. Are you there, Fergus?
Yes. Oh, just a second. Yes, I am. Thanks, Mike. And I just managed to unmute my microphone.
Yeah, sorry about that awful introduction. But it sounds like you've done so much stuff. Like, it's incredible the amount of stuff you've got under your belt.
Thanks, buddy. No, so are you Australian of background?
Yeah. I grew up in Australia, and now I'm living in freezing cold Berlin.
Wow.
But at least it's in the center of something. There's stuff going on. Australia is too far away for a lot of things.
Sure. I mean, look, I grew up and I've spent most of my life in New Zealand, but I've been traveling for the last maybe 8 years of my life, and I still follow it a lot. Of course, all my family are still back there, and one of my good friends from high school, we chat all the time about the local politics and whether I want to go back and start doing my work down under. But yeah, at least for now, I mean, I left New Zealand for better prospects. I was frustrated at the time, and I thought we had this crazy socialist feminist government, and I wanted to leave, but then I found out everywhere else was just the same problem, just the same situation. So we actually, our Prime Minister at that time was Helen Clark, who's now Head of Development for the United Nations. So that gives you a sense for the situation that we had down under. And what the challenge is that once I left seeking, brighter shores or better prospects, I actually found a lot of success, kind of unexpectedly, or like it went really well in the United States, much better than I expected. And that meant that I had a home or a career. And now it's harder to go back because I'd have to start at the bottom or work my way up again, as opposed to working with the relationships that are established in the United States and Canada.
Yeah, I'm always surprised, what I find in Australia and the oceanic countries is that generally there's a lot of apathy towards anything that the state does. They can just come in and it kind of like in SimCity, just raise taxes to whatever they want and and fine you here and tax you there. And everyone seems to go, oh, shit happens. And they don't really care about, they don't really voice their opinion that loudly. They kind of just gloss over it and think, oh, well. Whereas I find people in Europe, especially France, tend to get a lot more vocal and intense.
Yeah, I've been to Australia a few times, but I'm not an expert. I would agree that there is much less resistance or outrage. We don't have any kind of independent media like the United States has. We don't have a Breitbart, for example, or Reason magazine that would really tighten the screws or attack the growing welfare state. And I remember when I was in 2008, I was finishing off my university there, and I had a column, a weekly column in the student magazine, and it was just, there was so much low-hanging fruit. I was just having a field day. And I remember one time in New Zealand, we have taxpayer-funded elections, and that the parties get, they raise money, of course, but they also get money just given to them, well, not given to them, but taken from taxpayers. And that, obviously there was money getting spent unlawfully or illegally all over the place. And when the new government was elected or in power, they passed what was called the Parliamentary Expenditure Validation Law, which just retroactively made everything they did legal. And it was like, wasn't even a blip on the radar. No one even cared.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, mate. So I didn't really know what to say about that. I was just kind of aghast. My father said, "How can they do that?" Like, they just did it, man. No one's stopping them. Yeah.
Well, it's the God complex. You can just do anything if you're in the state.
Sure, man.
Well, guys, I'm back. Sorry I missed you for a minute, so I lost context. But I wanted to talk a little bit about your time in Latin America and what you think the cultural impact is of this cultural Marxism, so to speak, and this glorification of the left and socialism and communism, even in light of what's going on in the perfect example of why communism and that type of approach doesn't work in Venezuela, where you need, basically barrelfuls of money in order to purchase basic goods.
Oh man, Tatiana, there's so much to say to that question, right? Because I've devoted my adult life to understanding the Americas, in Canada down to Argentina and Chile, and I've been traveling a lot. I've probably made maybe 50 trips to Latin America, and I've spent most of my time in Colombia, Ecuador, and now Argentina. But I've been to all the worst places: Cuba, Venezuela, Honduras, El Salvador, and I'm trying to get to all the countries. There are so many, of course. But what has been the impact of cultural Marxism, or just Marxism in general? Well, it's been enormous and devastating. And there's a great book on this part of the world by a guy called Carlos Rangel. He's from Venezuela. He passed away in the 1980s, but he wrote back in the 1970s, and nothing has changed. Really bizarre. And in Spanish, it's called From the Good Savage to the Good Revolutionary, and in English they just called it the Latin Americans and their love-hate relationship with the United States. Basically, he explained the history, and one of the key points he made was that Latin America could submerge or just go beneath the sea, and it's almost like no one would notice in the rest of the world. And there's this problem. This place really is a failure, and people don't like to say it, of course. It's very sad, but if you think about just in terms of economics, right, that people in Latin America make about 1/5 of what people in Canada need. It's not like 20%. It's orders for US people in the United States make 5 times as much. It's a huge difference. And I remember when I was in El Salvador, looking out of the city thinking, people there, the average salary is $300 or $400 a month. Even people who speak English will make about $600 a month. And in Cuba, it's even worse, of course. That's a total communist wasteland. But I just thought, what is the deal? These people are not aliens. Why are they so poor? And there's just a long, tragic history of political instability, of a bunch of authoritarians. And one of the peculiar elements of a free society is that it takes a very long time to grow or to build, and it's very quick to be destroyed. So of course now it's completely destroyed in Venezuela. But so my own view is that the Anglosphere is really the freest part of the world, and it's taken many centuries to acquire this. So people who have not grown up in or ever known even a limited bit of economic freedom, because of course we know that our countries are not free, we've got socialism everywhere too. But people have a much worse situation where things like property rights, no one even cares about. I mean, when Chavez was in power in Venezuela, he would just go and say expropiarse, which means just confiscate this property. And right now, the latest news this week is that the Venezuelan regime has confiscated 3 million toys from a toy manufacturer just because they price things in dollars rather than the local currency. It's just insane. So it's really, it's gone to dystopic proportions. And so what happens?
It's like anti-Santa. The opposite of Santa Claus. The worst kind.
They plan to give them out, actually. I think they plan to give them out as some gift from the state. Of course, they stole them. But oh my God. Yeah, so I think if you have centuries and centuries of authoritarianism, you have much less confidence in your own ability to be successful. And I think, the Randians, objectivists talk about this a lot, actually, about having the sort of self-esteem or confidence in your individualism. You need the self-esteem to believe in capitalism because it relies on you and on your own success. So I think when you don't have that, your natural inclination is to look for some kind of state to protect you or philosophy that fits with it. And so Marxism, I mean, outright Marxism, from where I live in Patagonia in Argentina, there is Casa Marxista, like the Marxist house, and they have a big picture of Marx on the front of the house. This is like where the unions gather and, I don't know, the activists. So they brazenly advocate Marxism. They are proud. And I'm telling you that you might think, and this is one peculiar aspect of Latin America to me too, that everyone knows the governments here are corrupt. It seems that way. And yet you would think that would make them so pessimistic about protesting and political activity. But no, they protest all the time. Every other day they're out there protesting and shutting down the roads and having strikes. It's crazy. Even though they know the government, so they're begging all the time. And it's like a Occupy Wall Street protest on steroids, where you have all these Che Guevara pictures and the communist symbols all over the place. And I just lose my patience, of course. I just say, if you want to be poor, go ahead. And they'll say things like, down with imperialism or whatever. I'm going, there's no imperialism here. There's no one here. It's just you. And so there are no gringos. I mean, I'm the lone, I'm such an alien in this part of the world. And so how can I put it? I think that, yes, Marxism is the philosophy of the day throughout Latin America. But it's not an accident. It stems from the history. And I don't see it going away anytime soon. There's a saying about Brazil, actually, that Brazil is the country of the future or the country of tomorrow. But they've been saying that for decades, so it never quite gets here.
Do you think the death of Fidel Castro is going to, him seeing every form of communism absolutely fail before he died?
Well, not for him, of course. He was an extremely wealthy man. Yeah.
Right. But do you think there's sentiment changing from this moment in history?
No, I don't think so. I think the damage is already done. The anthropological damage to the Cuban society has been done over decades now. So people there have been intellectually stilted. They have no free speech, no free press. They don't have no diversity of education. They hardly know what's going on outside the world. They are not society. And so as much as I support people like the ladies in white or the damas de blanco, these are the wives of political prisoners who go and protest, I think their battle is futile, unfortunately. And I know this is not a nice thing to say on a libertarian show, but I really would have supported the Bay of Pigs invasion in the 1960s, which could have ousted Fidel Castro. So Fidel Castro was this rogue guerrilla, a bunch of gangsters who were living in the mountains. And yeah, they had a dictator, you know, bad guy. He came in and he was part of a group of people who actually wanted democracy. They wanted to modernize the country. But when he got in control, he basically just dominated the whole situation. And I met one of his fellow revolutionaries. What was his name now? I can't remember. One of his fellow military leaders was with him, did not like the way things were going, and Castro put him in prison for 22 years. And he only managed to get out and go live in Costa Rica after 22 years because the Costa Rican president asked for a pardon and just to give him some exile, so Castro let him go. But so at that time, a lot of the Cubans who were obviously not pleased with the situation and were exiles in Miami or Florida, they set about working with the US military to build their own force to go and fight. So Cubans went to fight, and with the support of the US, but this is all done, you know, quote, secret, and JFK did not want to have any US involvement. So basically, the US was supposed to support these people who were going to fight to get their country back, and they just abandoned them on the beach, and a whole bunch of them died there. And it's just a very sad story. Those men were brave and want to fight to bring their country back, and the US could have easily aligned with them and just said, we will support you. And 50 years or 60 years of just communist brutality could have been avoided. And I'm not saying that Cuba would have been some flourishing place. It probably would have just been like Puerto Rico, but it would have been a heck of a lot better than working for 20 bucks a month and, you know, getting on makeshift rafts trying to escape.
That's very interesting and also very depressing. I was thinking about, well, you know, after you taped the Stossel show, you, me, and Gloria Alvarez, we went out, and she also had a very unique perspective, and she was talking a lot about that cultural aspect. And when you think about, you know, there's all these different protests, I feel like there are certain protests and movements, revolutionary movements that are government sanctioned and A-OK, and then ones that are actually calling for more freedom are much more submerged, I guess, suppressed. That's the word. For example, in the United States, when we had Ron Paul, the media would never in a million gajillion years talk about Ron Paul unless it was to completely ridicule him. But Bernie Sanders, who's the rebel of the left, Mr., you know, independent, yeah, right, he got a ton of coverage, and all of his supporters were given the thumbs up as if they had the moral high ground. And I think that extends a little bit to Latin America in that there's all these people protesting, but what are they saying? At the end of the day, they're all wanting more government intervention. So what difference does it make? Even if Bernie had gotten in, at the end of the day, first of all, it would have never happened. Second of all, even if it did, it would have still bolstered the idea that the state is God, the state is bigger, the state must take over and manage everything. There are almost approved little skirmishes among people that the government has to go in and save, whereas true solutions are pretty suppressed on a multitude of levels, including in television, in film, in advertising, in all different kinds of cultural messages that we get as a community. Like as not even as a community, as people in America and around the world.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, look at this Ross Albright situation. I mean, he's a real protester, right? Someone who's not just talking about it and waving flags. He's actually offering an alternative and challenging the status quo. And so he is in prison for, quote, 2 life sentences or whatever that means. And also, Edward Snowden is now in exile in Russia. And these are 2 men who, they didn't just talk about doing things, they really did confront the state and confront injustice. And so I agree. I think this your note about Ron Paul, it hurts me because back in 2007, 2008, I was back in New Zealand, but following so closely. And I remember I would listen to talk radio, and Ron Paul supporters would call in, and often the prominent, quote, conservative or Republican hosts would just cut them off as soon as they heard Ron Paul and said, "Yo, never going to happen. You know, let's get over this. You know, unelectable. and I was just, I just was a bit brokenhearted.
Or they'd say things like, they'd say things like, when are you going to drop out? When are you going to drop out of the race?
Are you going to run third party? Yeah. So
like it was this constant nagging of getting out of the way. It was really disgusting.
Yeah,
so,
I hear you, man.
I just wanted to back you up on what you were saying about it, just one step back about once a country goes through communism, you really, it takes about 2 generations, 3 generations to recover from that. I had that direct experience with a friend of mine who grew up in Czech Republic during the communist regime, and also East Berlin, of course. I've got plenty of friends in there. But she was absolutely clueless when it comes to entrepreneurialism, because her parents didn't bring that across to her, and she was even mad at her parents. And I said, you can't be mad at your parents. They were in a regime that literally suppressed the concept of being creative, the concept of being an entrepreneur. It was crushed out of you. You had to do what you were given.
I hear you, and I met a couple of girls from Moldova, which is somewhat part of Russia, or at least part of the former Soviet Union, and they just had no concept of free speech. For example, when they see ads attacking the president on YouTube or whatever, they go, "What is this? How can they get away with this?" No respect. It was just very bizarre to me, and we forget that most of the world is a wasteland in terms of actual rights that people in the United States believe in, like gun rights or free speech, which are really American values that I believe in so strongly. And I wish even places like Canada would take these things seriously, but they don't. So that's why that's why I'm such a believer in the United States. I think that it's so critical that people fight to protect what limited freedom is left in the United States.
I think that with everything that's been going on lately politically, it's become very muddied in the States. What is an American value? And I don't really have a firm position on immigration. I like to engage with all different kinds of cultures. But something that I heard that resonated with me in terms of a criticism is, by letting out all these people into the United States, you're diluting the American values. And I'm not a statist. I'm saying get rid of all of it. But there's something to be said about the impetus for America in the first place. And that doesn't originate its power from the government. It originates its power from the spirit and the unwillingness to submit of the American people, right? Entrepreneurialism, going out and making your way through the world, picking yourself up by your bootstraps, all these independent qualities where people take responsibility for themselves. I think that's what we're really losing. And I think that that's what, Trump, some scary stuff, some stuff that's mildly encouraging. Let's face it, it's probably not going to be good, but there's a mild bit of hope. And the reason why is not so much because of him, but it's sort of what he represents. Because number one, he is he's very, very hardworking, and Americans really respect that. And number two, people were saying no more standard government like BS, right? So maybe Trump will suck, maybe he won't. But at the end of the day, people are saying that what we have right now doesn't work. And I think that that's very encouraging. And I think that people really resonated with the idea of make America great again. And I don't think that was some way to exclude other people, but it was about that American attitude. If we want to be the best, we're number one, and not in that tacky kind of Hollywood way where they make fun of people in the middle of America, but in a genuine pride in one's work and one's work ethic and the things that you contribute to your community voluntarily, not by just having a bunch of moochers, which seems to be the other attitude that prevails. I mean, I'm all about helping different people, but you can't steal from one person to help another person. It's ridiculous.
No, look, Tatiana.
And I believe people would give, right? I mean, if I didn't have 50% of my money taken away, I would give lots of money away.
Oh, to me, I just see these welfare programs as middle-class welfare, because most of the money goes to the middlemen, of course, not to the actual recipients. But look, I mean, aside from the whole womanizing thing, whatever, I actually really like Trump. And I think that he understands American exceptionalism, right? Even if he's not really philosophically refined or anything like that, he senses that the United States is a distinct nation, which it is. Because, and I heard an interview with the guy from Justin Raimondo from the antiwar.com website, and he was just saying that the United States is an island in a sea of socialism, and I think it is. That's why, for example, I have no patience for the United Nations or any of these international organizations, because they're always going to be against the United States. They're always a bunch of socialists or progressives or whatever. And so you have to have someone who's brash and says, forget all those people. You know, we don't listen to them. We're proud of what we are as the United States. We're proud of being rich and rich on our own merits and all these other attributes. Yeah, so being proud and openly so is a very American attribute. And Trump embodies that, of course. He's very proud,
Very,
with reason.
very proud.
And so, but people, and also he believes in personal responsibility, right? So one of my old colleagues from Venezuela, he used to tell me that you couldn't, in Venezuela, it would be very hard for someone on TV to say just, you're fired, right? People would say, well, isn't there some kind of process? This isn't fair. This person's needs a job or whatever. But Trump, he's so proud that if you don't fit the bill, you're fired. And that too is a very American value of taking personal responsibility for your results.
Contribution.
Yeah.
I like it. It could be really bad. I mean, most likely it will be. But we've got, a good couple months where we could be mildly hopeful. And frankly, the way that things have been going, I'll take it.
Yeah, I think the thing is that a lot of the Trump rhetoric is about bringing jobs back from overseas and jobs. The thing is that the jobs are going to be taken by robots and AI. And that's coming extremely fast. Everyone's looking at the person with the brown skin or someone that looks different, when really the AI, I mean, every single startup in Silicon Valley is trying to disrupt or destroy jobs in terms of to make things more efficient, and that's fine. But we're going to have to think of new economic models on how to deal with what happens throughout humanity. And this is why I really love what's happening with Bitcoin, because it's a new type of ism, it's a new type of economic theory, and there are thousands of different economic theories that can be played out without gulags, without violence. We can try out nice economic theories and see if they work. Like, I'm not the biggest fan of Steemit. I like Steemit. I think it's an interesting project. I'm not sure if they've got all the little bits tangled out, but it's a really nice way of looking at how content creators can get paid, or there's other ways of getting paid through a blockchain rather than a state. And I think there's really interesting crossovers with your background in economics, and I'd love to hear what you think of that.
Well, I want to go back to Tatiana's point actually about diluting the American dream or whatever. I just think it's a really tough position to be in, because as an immigrant and someone who's dealt with all this bureaucracy so much, I can't stand it. I can't stand border guards. I think they're super annoying, and I think the bureaucracy doesn't function well. But at the same time, I think there's really a big problem letting immigrants into the United States, because if you think you can just bring people from Somalia or Saudi Arabia or whatever and they'll just become regular Americans, forget it. It's just not the case. And
that's what I was saying. It's like they're not going to have that same value system because they grew up different. It's not that they're bad people. It's just one person from one neighborhood grows up with a different set of viewpoints.
Yeah. These things don't change
everybody.
quickly. It's going to move to become Chinese or adopt their values tomorrow or in a few years. No, and your children won't either. So, I mean, I still remember when I was in college in Boston and I had roommates from Lebanon, and for example, their views on women were just brutal. And I just was kind of shocked, for example. I mean, because there is a woman who does these videos about, the culture under Islam and under these Islamic countries, and she was saying how in Iran there's basically not even a word for rape, because rape is almost impossible to fine or to punish someone for, because you need 4 male witnesses, which of course never happens. And like I said, the things that the way they view women is so different and definitely not egalitarian. So if you just have to ask yourself how you're going to address this. And I remember there was a wonderful meme, and usually memes don't have that much wisdom, but this one seemed to have some that really struck me. And it showed a picture of Ian Freeman, or the guy who does the show up in New Hampshire. I assume he's still going strong up there. And it had a picture of him saying, thinks a libertarian movement in New Hampshire will create a libertarian state. Doesn't think an Islamic movement in the United States will create an Islamic state. And it just showed that confusion we have, that of course it will create an Islamic state. If we bring in people who have 5 times as many children as our women have, and they have these very strong views, they're going to populate, and they're going to impose their views. And the irony to me about all this integration of, particularly from the Middle East, is that in their countries, such as, let's say takes Turkey, which is one of the more moderate of them, it's more than 99% is Muslim. And there's no tolerance for, you know, minority rights or whatever. And yet when these people come to the United States, they want to have, you know, their version of food, their holidays, whatever it may be. They want to pray 5 times a day. And so I just think that this is, it's a very difficult issue, but at least Trump had the courage to take on the politically correct or progressive narrative that these people are just innocent and they're harmless and we don't have to worry about it. I think you do have to worry about it. I think it is a problem. And I'm not even thinking about the terrorism, which is, it gets more headlines. I'm thinking about the underlying long-term change to the culture, the values of the country, which are totally aside from individualism and limited government and separation of church and state, which are anathema to the Muslim world.
Yeah, I'm really uncomfortable talking about this stuff because I think that in America, you can't discuss it reasonably. You can't talk about it without everybody just jumping down your throat. And I don't even have a horse in the race. I don't know how I feel about a lot of these things. But what I think that the whole Trump thing was, it was a backlash against that. The left narrative being the only acceptable one. And if you thought differently, you were a horrible person and you didn't believe in America and you were racist and this and that and the other thing. But if we can't have open discussions about these issues and tolerate, really, truly tolerate differing viewpoints and bring them to the table and not only have this one moral high ground, I think that, you know, that's how we make progress. And without that, then we're just going to be in a stalemate and people continue to feel further and further away from each other. Because I don't think that people on the right or people that are advocating for stronger borders necessarily are horrible people that only want to keep in the white people and keep all the others out. I don't think that's what's going on. I think that people have some legitimate concerns, and it's unfortunate that in this land of free speech where everybody around the world is admiring us for, we can't actually have open conversations because it's been kind of hijacked.
Well, let me put it this way, Ryan. I mean, the United States, even Canadians are much more socialist than Americans, but just imagine what it's like here in Latin America. And this is very close to me because I had a dear friend. I helped her get asylum in the United States. And then she and her family became Democratic Party supporters, you know, and they thought I was too conservative or whatever. And I'm not even Republican, you know, I'm an anarcho-capitalist. And I just saw how their values came with them, and they didn't get it. And then people who are Venezuelan, who perhaps grew up in the United States, are much more willing to say this openly. They will just say that they don't get it, you know. That they come, and you've got to be, I guess, sympathetic to some degree too, because if you've grown up in a nation where the government has this, you know, bottomless reservoir of oil and just a huge amount of money to buy everyone off and to pay for everything, and there's just not the culture of entrepreneurship or individualism, it's going to seem weird to them. And also because of the language barrier, when they arrive, they naturally mix with their own people. Can I say what? Yeah, go ahead, matey, speak up. Yeah.
Oh, no, I actually, you know, I just wanted to play the devil's advocate on that. I mean, you know, American culture isn't like everyone believes in freedom and stuff. You know, you get people that absolutely hate women.
I think it is.
Totally.
That's the whole point of America. That's what we're taught in school. As an American, I take offense.
But
like,
I've met people.
Talking about?
I've met people in America who are absolutely just hate women. I've met people.
What does women have to do with government?
No, well, I'm just saying. You know, we were saying that, like, you might get someone from a Muslim country, and the way they talk about women, it's very different. But I'm just saying, there's pockets all throughout, and and that comes with individualism. Is that there is, sure, there are stereotypes, but the stereotypes are very broad, especially in the States. In America,
stereotypes of Americans.
Yeah, I mean, all throughout America, right across from the east to the west coast, it differs so differently, so many different cultures, and that's the same with around the world. So I don't, you know, as I
No,
yes,
but,
there
yeah,
are
but come
certain
on, man.
things that
I hear you, but look, no, none of us. We're not going to argue that the U.S. is some kind of libertarian paradise. I mean, it's obviously not. Right? We've got Social Security. We have all these
biggest government
monstrosities.
in the world.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's really not, and it's unfortunate because if you just cut the federal government out of the United States and just was the United States and not that, it would be relatively libertarian, right? If you had just the New Hampshire government or the Texas government or North Carolina or whatever, they would be very, reasonable or tolerable governments. Okay, we got to wrap up. Okay, so, but I think the problem is the relatively speaking, because I just think that it's true the U.S. has all these problems and its status and there's socialists running around, but I think that if you go and live in New Zealand, even in the best alternatives like New Zealand or Canada or Australia, I mean, think about gun rights. What are the gun rights in Australia? I mean, there are none. There are none in New Zealand. I mean, you are not allowed to use guns as self-defense in New Zealand. You have to have your guns stored apart from the
ammunition.
And apart from the ammunition, you have to have a gun safe that is locked and the ammunition stored in another room, so it cannot be used for self-defense. I mean,
I'm sorry, but we are the last bastion of freedom, and that's pretty scary. I think it's really important for those values because think about it. You can't even have a gun in these countries. They tell you that you can't have a gun. I mean, I don't know. We're not going to solve all these problems today, but I think this is a really interesting conversation. I'm excited for our next guest, but I'm sad to see Fergus go.
Oh, Tatiana, anytime. I'd love to come back.
Yeah, you should come back. Fergus, do you want to plug anything before you go?
Well, I mean, I'd love people to follow me on Twitter, of course, just Fergus Hodgson, and my blog is The Stateless Man, just thestatelessman.com. And if people want to learn more about and do business in Latin America, yeah, call me, because even if I'm pessimistic or cynical about the governments, I have almost zero confidence in them. I think on an individual level, there's so much opportunity here. There's so many holes in the market. And if you want a personal assistant or you want to do an offshore incorporation or whatever, yeah, come to me. It's just, so my new company is Antiguai.com, Antigua International, and we help people bridge this gap or better understand what they're dealing with. So yeah, I'd love to have more people contact me about that. Okay.
Awesome. Thanks, Fergus. Good. Yeah, everybody go check him out, and then look me up next time you're in New York. Hopefully I'll be down in Argentina next year. I'm looking forward to that. So we'll have to hang.
Catch you guys.
Great. Ciao. Bye. So we're about to bring on our next guest, but I wanted to say a few things. I wanted to thank our sponsors, CryptoCompare.com and the Bitcoin CPA. Stay on top of all your crypto news with Crypto Compare, and the Bitcoin CPA will keep you out of trouble with the IRS because nobody wants that. Bitcoin is total pain when it comes to that stuff. And also, if you're going on Acapulco, you can use the checkout code Tatiana and get 10% off of the ticket price. I don't know if I'm going, but maybe I will, and maybe I'll see you there. Also, CryptoMediaHub.com if you need any help with marketing, advertising, PR for the Bitcoin space. That's me. And JoshValtoro.com. Get Bitcoin, get gold. And now let's get our next guest onto the camera stage, whatever the hell we're calling this thing.
Move him in.
We actually don't have video for him because Google Hangouts is disappointing at times. But John, welcome to the show. What's going on, buddy? Okay, well then, that's a really great introduction. Perhaps you could start with telling me how I pronounce your last name. I think it's Massaria. It's a very Italian last name. But looks like John is muted. I don't know why.
Yeah, John, you have to unmute yourself in the top
Someone's
corner.
got to mute. He's unmuting. This is very technical, everyone.
Yeah. But I got to say, if just to bring back to some of our sponsors is while we're waiting, the Bitcoin CPA, Coinbase is currently, all of the IRS is doing a massive sweep of Coinbase. So if you haven't got your finances into order, then I would recommend definitely the Bitcoin CPA.
I don't even know what you just said. You're mumbling and you're talking very quietly. Now, John, how's it going? Are you on the show?
How are you? All right, good. I think I got it working now.
Okay, good. Talk closer to the microphone. You're a little far away. I might be a little too close to the mic.
All right. Can you hear me better now?
Oh, look at that magical technique. Okay, wonderful. Very good.
All right.
Well, John, tell us about what?
I gave
How
you
did you
guys a
make this
bio.
movie?
Why don't you read the bio and then we can talk? Do you guys
Well,
have a
no,
bio?
because you're supposed to tell the audience about yourself. I'm not supposed
All
to tell
right.
them about you. You're supposed to make it
I thought
conversation.
somebody was going to introduce me. I don't know.
No, that's not how we do it.
Oh,
You're supposed
okay.
to
An
tell
amazing
everybody you know
filmmaker.
about yourself. What's going on?
Okay. Uh, Basically, I've done some pretty cool films with some pretty cool, interesting whistleblowers. Right now, I'm working on a film called I Love My Country But Hate What They Are Doing, which features Dr. Daniel Ganzer, who's a historian from Europe, and Tommy Hansen. Inside that film is going to be William Binney, Lee Camp, who we went out to RT in Washington to go meet, and then Ken O'Keefe. We also interviewed. Joe Rogan's also in there, and Gerald Salente, Peter Cooper, Anthony Frieda, Ray McGovern. We went to go visit him in Washington, D.C. A few authors like Bill Bloom. It's spelled B-L-U-M. He's the author of things like America's Deadliest Import. America's Deadliest Export, Democracy. And he has a bunch of great books. Richard Grove.
So what's the movie about? Why? Okay, we know there's a lot of famous people in it. That's very good.
Epic.
What kind of motivated you? And like, take me back a little bit because you weren't always a filmmaker. What made you focus on kind of this alternative information? What was your awakening moment? And then give me a little bit of the trajectory. And then I want to get into the meat of this because I want to know
Sure.
the why, and then we'll talk
Sure.
about the what.
Sure. I guess years ago, I owned a company. It was a car wash. And my dad was in the car washing business, and we used to have all kinds of chemicals, and we used to sell something called Teflon, which was an additive inside of one of the soaps. You could buy it separately for your car. And I started to look into it, and I guess the web was just starting out in the early 90s, and I was a computer geek. I went to computer camp and all that stuff. And anyway, so in the 90s, I started to look up what Teflon is and how it was damaging the earth. And I told my dad, and I was just like, this is horrible stuff. So I had a website called Exotic Audio, which was like a side thing that I did. And I used to put up articles on that. It was basically like almost like beautiful audio equipment for people that just want to see like super expensive and exotic audio equipment from around the world that they may not see. And then I would put small funny comments below it. And so I gained an audience around the world from this website, and I started to use it for protesting against things that would damage the earth. And one of them was PFOAs. PFOAs are a derivative of Teflon, and Teflon was originally developed during the A-bomb era in the 40s, and it was used on the coating of the wires and stuff like that. And what it did was it violated nature by permanently mixing water and oil together so that it gets recycled into the hydrological cycle of our water systems. So when I started to do research in the 90s, I got real pissed, and I didn't know how else to let myself express myself. So I started to print these articles, and then from there, I just started finding out more and more about other things that were being covered up. Like DuPont is one of the big companies. Monsanto was also involved with Teflon. Also, everything that Monsanto does is pretty much nefarious. So, and then I did a video for somebody who did a blog talk kind of conversation on the phone. It was Russ Tanner talking to Dane Wigington about geoengineering, and this was back in 2012. So I just was like, man, nobody's going to hear this thing. This is pretty important information. They were talking about the methane cycle and how the pelagic fish population is dying, and the fish are getting cancer from all this stuff. And I was just like, man, people, and then they talked about, of course, chemtrails and the chemicals being spewed out from the backs of airplanes, whether or not they're solar radiation management back then or they are now, or they're admitted by the CIA now. So I did this little film about that, and that kind of put me on the map of making more and more films. And as I got better,
What was that movie called?
The Most Important Topic for 2012.
That was the name of the movie?
Yeah, that was the name of it. It wasn't really a movie. It was more like, just them talking, blog talk. And then I just put it to images that they were speaking about, because some of the conversations were pretty complex. So from there, I guess I started to get trolled tremendously from this really bad. I'm not even going to mention his name. All right, I'll mention his name. Mick West from metabunk.org, which is out of the UK. And he started bombarding all my Facebook channels and Facebook pages. I had about 8 of them because I have different things that I do. One of them is like an antenna array out in Chile. And they actually called up the Chilean antenna array and said, how are you guys letting a guy who's a conspiracy theorist about chemtrails run a fan page for ALMA in Chile? They actually called these people up and they wrote me a letter saying that, if you talk about these certain things, we could shut down your Facebook page. I'm like, you can't shut down my Facebook page. It's a non-for-profit fan page about your telescopes. So anyway, so I started to get into a debate with them, and I found out all about Mick West and his company, what was it called? Neversoft. And he sold the program that was called Tony Hawk's, I think it was like skateboarding video game. He became pretty wealthy from that. So he started to troll me, and then all his people from the UK with IP addresses from the UK started trolling me, and then people in the United States and people from the islands. So I was like, what's going on? And then he started making threats against me, saying that if you don't take the video down, things could happen. And I was just like, this is crazy. So I had a conversation with Russ Tanner about it and Dane Wigginton, and they were just like, don't pay any attention. I got pretty scared. So I took the video down, and then it got picked up and went viral because people were like, he got intimidated and there must be something in there. So people started to make it go viral. They translated it to like 3 different languages, I think. And then they made a version for 2013. And I think they made a version for 2014. But yeah, so that was a pretty important conversation, but it's still not as important as other things that I think I'm talking about now. I mean, obviously everybody thinks that whatever they're doing, they think is the most important thing to them at that particular moment. So
and have you managed to get funding? Because I know that filmmakers and artists always find it hard to get funding. What sort of and funding also leads to where ideas come from. If some study comes out about I don't know, global warming or anti-global warming, you've got to also look where the money's coming from. A lot of people need that these days when they're looking at stuff on the internet. So how are you being funded and so forth?
I guess everything comes out from my pocket. I mean, I don't really, I did a fundraiser on Indiegogo, and I did this 28-minute film showing the first edit of I Love My Country, but hate what they're doing. And people took a liking to that. And then the very first film that I did was Behind Truth Art, which featured Anthony Frida and his escapades with his artwork, which is so awesome. He's world famous. I mean, everybody knows Anthony Frida's artwork is just beautiful. And he's a great person too. I'm really blessed to know him. And I owe it all to Gigi Bowman, who kind of got me into the whole thing here on Long Island, which was Save Long Island Forum. And now she's out in Florida, but I still miss her. And I love all the relationships that I've built over the time. So it's pretty awesome. But as far as funding goes, I guess.
Oh,
John? Oh, did we lose him?
John. He's gone silent. So,
well, I kind of want to know what happens in this film. I saw a part of it.
Yeah,
but I think that we lost John for a second.
Well, it looks like a very interesting film, and I think I love the title because I think that's how a lot of people feel. That I
would say so.
Really love the country, but they're like, what's going on? The state apparatus is really annoying. So
we've lost John. He might come back. I saw the film at Liberty Fest in New York, and that was kind of cool because it was shown to everybody. But I'm not very good at watching talks during actual talks. I never do, and I have a really hard time focusing there. But Jeffrey Tucker really liked the film specifically, so it was nice to deliver that news back to John because Jeffrey's a very respected guy. Also, I think that Jeffrey has a nice sensibility about things that are entertaining, which I think is lacking in the Liberty and Bitcoin space. Like there's no sense of humor, there's no sense of drama, or I don't know. So I think that a Jeffrey Tucker compliment is always a good one.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Can you hear me
and
now?
also, there
Oh,
he
hey,
is.
John. Great. You're back. So tell us, what do you guys delve into in this movie, and how
Where
long
did
is
I
it?
leave
When
off?
is it
'Cause
going to
I'm
be
sorry about
released?
that. I was talking about Extortion 17 and I got cut off.
Oh, okay. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about what's going on with this film specifically? Like, what is it focusing on, and when can people expect to see it, and things like that? Are you putting out commercially? How are you releasing it?
Right now I'm doing all the editing myself. I go out and travel. I go by minivan. You know, our minivan got broken into, by the way, when we went to Washington D.C. 400 no, it was actually 171 feet from Pizzagate, which is right, you know, that ping pong pizza place. This was a week before the pizza story came out on the WikiLeaks from about the Podesta emails and all that. So
Wait, can we jump over to WikiLeaks for a second in this Pizzagate thing? Because you seem pretty well versed in this. I
me,
saw an article in the New York Times today, and it was such a disgrace because it was saying, oh, I guess they invited Vice President Pence or whatever his name is to have pizza at Pizzagate, or the Comet Pizza place, which isn't even Pizzagate. And they basically shred the entire thing just from the headline, completely dismissive of anything. And whether or not you think that pizza place was the heartland of pedophilia, there's a lot of very sketchy, very real issues with Pizzagate that Podesta was involved with.
I spent a good probably 48 hours working on this thing with Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton that kind of ties back to the Pizzagate thing. It was called the Pardon Gate, where Bill Clinton gave pardons to over 460 people. And it's a 7-minute film. I've done a lot of short films that are very fulfilling, I think. And it talks a lot about how he let this guy Lalsater, I think his name is Lasater, Lassater. I guess his last name is Dan Lassater. Anyway, he was giving cocaine to underage kids, and he was having sex with this 14-year-old girl, and puts her on the, brings her to his doctor, and actually puts her on the pill, and he starts giving everybody, like all these underage kids, cocaine at these parties with Bill Clinton, and it's disgusting. I mean, it's absolutely. So I was just doing research on the part of the interviews that I was doing with this DEA agent who was talking about the Menina, Arkansas, and the whole drug trade with the Iran Contras and all that stuff, because that's part of my film. So I said, all right, I got to make a 7-minute film. So I did this little 7-minute film, and it talks a lot about that, specifically inside the Podesta emails. I mean, listen, I've read through a lot of them. I stopped researching it because it's so disgusting, and it's so evident, and it's so blatant. If you just read the emails, you know that they're not talking about $76,000 worth of hot dogs and cheese pizzas from Chicago.
It's ridiculous.
So there's definitely something going on.
Right. And so
so
to
dark and
basically
disgusting.
crap on it and pretend that it's ridiculous. This is the headline. Mike Pence is invited to dine at pizzeria at center of fake news barrage. And the entire article is all about how ridiculous Pizzagate is, without actually talking about what it is, just making fun of people and completely dismissing their points of view and the very valid questions. So I don't know, just went off on a random Pizzagate tangent.
Well, if you look into it, they've been covering it up for a long time, and they've been doing it in other countries, like especially in England. There was a huge pedophile ring brought down, and then it kind of got swept under the carpet. Look at the church, the Catholic Church. I mean, you don't really hear too much about the Jewish people having pedophilia in their religion because they keep it so quiet. They own all the media. I mean, that's the truth. I'm not trying to be, I have a lot of friends that are Jewish. It's not about that. But every culture, I think, has some kind of sick person. If you sample 100 people, there's some of them are pedophilias. So they all have this personality that's deranged or possessed or whatever you want to call it. It's just messed up. Let's just put it that way, right? So, the church, do you think that story went away, but do you think pedophilia went away?
No, I think that it's rampant in all different kinds of cultures. And I think it's a very unpleasant topic to discuss. And I think that when I hear about Pizzagate, I'm almost gleeful in my reaction because I think, good, let these suckers get what's coming to them. But at the end of the day, we're talking about something that most people, myself included, can't even fathom in
Yeah, I
terms of
can't
the
stand
depth of
talking about it either.
gravity.
Yeah, it's a
But,
horrible thing.
people
But
have to.
I will tell you this.
Mhm.
There's a story a lot of people, your listeners, might want to hear or look up, is the Afghan dancing boys, which
Oh, yeah,
was,
that's a pretty creepy one. I know
yeah, it's
about
pretty
that.
creepy. Craig Buckley, he lives on Long Island. His son was murdered by one of these kids that's basically a slave in Afghanistan. And the police department, it goes all the way up to the top of their police departments and their army. And we allow it to happen. And this guy, Craig Buckley, is just trying to get the word out that we should really not be there doing this for these people. We're unarmed in their bases. Basically, when we go to their bases, we're unarmed. Our troops are unarmed. I mean, I hate war altogether. I think war is the worst solution. Should be the last solution for anything. But to disarm our troops in the barracks and then be open targets for these little slave boys is just terrible. Am I coming in okay? Am I loud enough?
I think we're veering off into the weeds. It's a little intense, but I mean, I think it's worth discussing. I think maybe there needs to be a Pizzagate episode soon. I was thinking
if our government is covering up in Afghanistan and allowing it to happen and not putting it on the news saying we are allowing these boys to be raped by these people and our troops are there and we're allowing to happen and our troops are getting killed, it's not really varying off this situation. Same thing with Clinton. Clinton pardoned a known pedophiliac, cocaine giving, maniac. So it's not really off the beaten path for Podesta emails because they're all seem to have this, and that's the way they bribe each other. They keep it under wraps, just like Thomas Drake said, that they spy through people's emails and they use it against them in so that when they become powerful, they can control them. So that's all relative. It's all relative.
So do you get into that in the film, or is it more based on just regular war stuff?
Yeah, no, it's just basically categorizing and talking about how we've just instigated every war for pretty much everywhere since World War II, and these are unsanctioned wars that our Congress doesn't do. It's basically just an eye opener. I don't even Tatiana, did you see it?
Yes, I did, but I don't recall it right this minute. I did watch it when I got home, and I remember liking it, and then it's been a while since then, so I don't recall. But I remember liking it at the time.
It's got a powerful vibe about it, I think, and it's got the momentum. And now I have a lot better people in it than the first edit. So hopefully
when
it'll
are we going to be
minutes.
able to watch it? When are people able to see it publicly? Do you want to give a plug? Are people able to watch it right now?
I'm working on edit 2, and I'll release edit 2. And then edit 3 will come out, and then I'll combine them all for a 90-minute film, so that they're, right now as they stand on their own as a fulfilling kind of 28-minute kind of film. So I don't want to deviate from that. I like that idea where people could just sit and watch something and feel like they watched something that was full for almost 2 hours, but in 28 minutes. And that's why I do a lot of 7-minute films. Because I think
I like that. Well, then you're not
9 minutes.
asking for people for a huge commitment, and I think that that's always good.
You have to get them into it first, and then if you sit them in a movie theater, that's why if I put them into 3 sections and combine them into 90 minutes, people will be in a movie theater and they'll sit and watch it. But online, I'm not sure how many people will do that. Don't know.
Well, it's a good thing to share. It's the holidays, but we still got to think about all the people that we're bombing in between our festivities, and maybe put a stop to that.
There's a lot of stuff going on right now.
Where can people catch up with you online?
It's goodpixelproductions.com, or you can just catch me up on Facebook.
All right, great. John Massaria, everybody. We're going to wrap up the show. We usually have a magic word or magic phrase. Do you want to volunteer that today? For our LTB listeners.
Is it a secret word? Like
a secret word. It could be a phrase. I like it to be something inspiring.
Putting human health above corporate wealth. How about that?
All right, putting human health above corporate health. It's a little bit advertising.
Wealth. Sorry, corporate wealth. I think I spelled. Yeah,
you did misspell it. That's okay.
Wealth.
Okay, so everybody, just listen. Putting human health above corporate wealth. It's a tongue twister, but you're going to have to do it if you want to get your LTB coins.
Rachel Parent from Canada actually said that first, and I have to give her credit for that.
Oh, perfect. Okay, well, holla. All right, everybody, if you want to catch up with John, go to goodpixelproductions.com. Fergus Hodgson is at Antigua International, AntiguaI.com. Check out Josh, get your gold for Bitcoin exchange action going on. The world is very unstable. Altoro will keep you liquid. And what else? I don't know. I guess that's it. You guys can come and hang out with me, cryptomediahub.com, tatianamorose.com. Got all sorts of new music and stuff going on over there. Check out freeross.org. The Free Rossathon was a huge success.
Yeah.
But you could still donate. So go to freeross.org and you could donate there. Crypto Compare, thank you. Bitcoin CPA, you know I love you, bud. See y'all later. We'll see you next week. Thanks very much for a good show. Peace out. Bye.
Thank you.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao.